Reddit by Reddit recap. What's the last straw that made you go, yep, that person is definitely crazy? Months after going on a single date with a woman, she calls me on Christmas Eve while I'm at work to introduce me to her family over the phone as her boyfriend. The one date we had was dinner at a restaurant. She didn't order anything, just kept eating my fries and then watching TV back at her place. Nothing physical happened and the date ended with a handshake. When I responded that we were not a couple, she started freaking out and crying about how horrible I was for breaking up with her on Christmas Eve. Do you think she actually believed you were dating, or was that just a lie she was telling her family and then they called her bluff? I'm sure that she believed that we were dating because she later found out my home address and sent me a letter accusing me of leading her on. A man came into the bar I work at. He's a semi-regular and is quite energetic but harmless. Everything was as normal. He drank his small Sauvignon Blanc and left. This is where it gets weird. He came back in a couple of hours later and I asked him if he'd like the same wine he had last time. He stared at me, dead-eyed and completely silent for maybe 30 seconds. Before laughing, he went on to tell me that I must be confusing him for his twin brother, and that in fact his brother was from Earth but he is from another planet. And there couldn't possibly be anything suitable for him to drink in our bar because his digestive system is completely different from ours. This went on for a while. He eventually left and came back in an hour or so later, had a glass of wine, and left again. He's perfectly nice and respectful, so isn't a problem, and there's a whole community of people looking out for him. But he's definitely crazy. Edit. Worked out. Work at. TFW, you're so socially awkward you have to pretend you're an alien twin. Oh my god. They remember me. Say something so they'll stop talking. It was my twin brother. I'm an alien. Nailed it. When someone has known someone for 20 years and says they are bad news, believe them. My father-in-law said that his ex-wife's brother said that she was crazy and he shouldn't marry her. He didn't listen. And she is still terrorizing his life 35 years and a divorce later. I was a personal assistant for a woman who was extremely lawyer happy. Meaning, she always was looking for ways to sue people. I accompanied her while she picked her child up from daycare one day. She parked in a no parking zone that most parents use as a car line to pick up their older kids. And a dad of another child came over and calmly asked her to please move her car so that the car line could keep moving. He was completely cool about it. My boss ranted all the way home about how the man made her feel unsafe and threatened, and that she'd be contacting her lawyer so she could sue him for emotional distress. No clue how she went about that since I quit shortly after. And yes, she threatened to sue me when I quit. That's the ending sentence I wanted to hear most. And yes, she threatened to sue me when I quit. On what basis? There was some girl I met during my teenage years. We chatted for like 30 seconds and exchanged phone numbers. Never met after that. Only texted. And we did that back and forth for a few months, and then I went to college. Then she finally drops "I love you" to me. Obviously, I feel weird about the whole situation because we've only exchanged like 20-30 texts and all of it was small talk. I don't know how to respond to that. The next text a few hours later was "Mr. Breton, I'm pregnant." What? At that point my red flag detector is going off. So I try to cut off the relationship by texting okay and ghosting. A minute later, "I think it's yours. And if you don't come back to take care of me, I'm going to kill myself." I deleted everything after that. I still wonder to this day if she was legit crazy, or if she got me confused with someone she actually slept with. Today I learned you can get pregnant through texting. This definitely feels more like legit crazy. You don't accidentally tell someone that stuff. My ex wouldn't take opiates when recovering from tonsil surgery because he considered it a relapse, recovering heroin addict. Which I thought was commendable. He then felt like he couldn't breathe. So he got scissors and cut out his uvula and sent videos pics in a group chat. You would not believe the red flags I ignored up to his point. But that definitely did it. I audibly gasped at how straight up insane that is. Most things I've been reading here are manifestations of mental illness, and I can understand that. I'm personally affiliated with the field, and it's ultimately a sad, upsetting situation for all involved. But I'm physically uncomfortable now. We were newly married and Hub worked at an office that had one fun guy that we liked to hang out with. Call him S. Well. S lived at home and asked if he could rent out our basement apt. It seemed like a great idea. Because of the extra money and he was a fun guy, it was all good for a week or so. Then Hub had to leave to a different city for training. So, S thought he had to be the man of the house. I was a busy trauma nurse on call a lot and was hardly home. But when I was, S would barbecue dinner and be really miffed if I didn't want it, etc. That's just one example. But that type of behavior escalated. Hub was only gone for 3 days. Came back. And S behavior kept escalating. One night, I was going out for girls' night and Hub had a big black tie with his company. S was not as high up and was planning on staying home. This was back in the late 90s, so I'm not entirely sure how he found out where I was with my gang of girls at a downtown bar. About midnight, all of a sudden he shows up and tells me it's time to go. It's late. Table of my work friends became totally silent and everyone was staring at me. Also, S was wearing all of my Hub's clothes. From jacket to shirt, pants, socks and shoes. FKN bizarre. I sent him away. But girls' night was pretty awkward after that. He wasn't home when I got home, thank God. I told Hub everything when he finally got home and we went to bed. The next morning we heard thumps and a lot of loud voices. Came out of bedroom and he was moving out and had a bunch of his high school friends there. They were moving him out but also taking all our shit. Laundry, soap, food, etc. S saw we were up and marched over and gave us a lecture about how shitty we are and how we won't fare well without him, etc, and he finally left. I know he was let go at work later on and actually feel a bit bad. He prob had some sort of mental illness, but still. Very creepy experience. When they brought a dead bird into a Subway sandwich place and tried to barter it for a sub. Edit. This was years ago, so to my best recollection, here's the long version. I was eating at my local Subway sandwiches. Woman comes to the counter, pulls a dead bird from her coat and asks what type of sub she can get for the bird. Everybody turns and watches as the teenager behind the counter realizes what's going on. He starts yelling that she needs to leave because a dead bird is an obvious health thing. She gets mad that he's not even willing to hear her out and storms off mumbling and swearing under her breath. Were they a cat? I had an Irish man come into my pub and try to barter booze for a fish he'd gotten in the market. Irish boys on tour are the funniest, friendliest pains in the ass you'll ever meet. I thought that was a bit mad, but your story is nuts. So I was heading out to get groceries with my roommates, and on our way out of our house, we found a homeless man digging through our trash. It was slightly surprising since it's not every day that you find a man looking for empties under your porch. We decided he was pretty harmless since all he was doing was looking around. Plus he was actually going out of his way to clean up our admittedly disgusting parking lot of not just bottles and cans. He was sweeping dirt, weeds, and our neighbors' trash that they left unprotected under their porch, which was now swarming with wasps and eaten by animals. We got him some empties from inside, gave him a cold drink, locked the door, and left to get groceries. When we got back, we found that he was still there after an hour and a half cleaning our parking lot. We were amazed and grateful, so we struck up a conversation. He seemed like a normal guy. He used to be a business owner. He fixed roofs for a living. He made decent money before he was homeless. He used to be married. He has kids. Unfortunately, his life kind of spiraled after he got mixed up in meth use. Frank, if you ever read this, we love you. This dude played too much Assassin's Creed. Also meth. My ex calling the cops on me because she thought I was trying to poison her. I bought salted butter instead of unsalted. Was she a snail? What was their response? Not too extreme. But I had a co-worker that regularly talked about how so many of her friends have screwed her over in the past. At first I believed her and felt bad. until she told us what her latest ex-friend did, after basically calling him every name in the book. Of course, she and her husband decided one day to replace their furniture. This was a spur of the moment decision. And since they didn't have a truck to move their stuff, they texted their friend to see if said friend could help them, along with friend's truck. Friend said no. Can't do, I'm busy today. Crazy Beach showed up at his house and flipped out when she saw that he was home relaxing. That's how entitled she thought she was to his vehicle and his time. She screamed about every single thing she had ever done for him. Petty shit like bought you a soda when you forgot your wallet shit. Cops had to be called. From then on out I was careful not to accept any favors from her because I'm 98% sure the only reason she would ever do a nice thing is to throw it back in your face when you have to tell her no. Like she used to give one of our co-workers a ride home. And I witnessed this co-worker on multiple occasions offer gas money, pay for her lunch, etc. as a thank you. She always declined with I'm going that way anyway. Until one day co-worker pissed her off, so she ran around telling everyone that co-worker was a mooch and never once paid gas money. IDK, maybe this is more manipulative than crazy. But she was always so miserable, so it's not like she was even getting what she wanted at the end of the day, so I consider it some kind of crazy. Oh Jesus. I have a recent ex-friend who is just like that. I could smell the bullshit on her after a few meetings, but in the interest of civility, she's dating my other friend, I kept my mouth shut. But after a couple of years of that sort of bullshit, I just couldn't be asked with it anymore. Everything she did was transactional. Nothing was altruistic. Unfortunately, my other friend caught her crazy and also became a selfish, entitled wanker. So we're no longer on speaking terms. Her favorite thing to do was to humble brag about all of the charity work she does and then use that as an excuse to prop herself up when she got pulled up on her behavior and how she was always victimized by people when she was such a good person. God ducking forbid if someone didn't like her and worship the ground she walks on. This would induce a full-scale childish breakdown. Why doesn't such and such a body like me? I haven't done anything wrong to them. I'm such a good person, why does everyone hate me? Followed by crying. In my opinion, if you're doing good deeds so you can use them as leverage later, then you're a selfish prick. There was a lyric from a band Hot Hot Heat that always stuck out to me and perfectly describes these types. You didn't have to do it, but you did it to say that you didn't have to do it, but you did anyway. Great catchy song, but also made me realize I knew a couple people like that. It is never just to be friendly. It was always so you would owe them later. Best comment of the day. I worked at the municipal office in my town. We had a flood that flooded the whole downtown area. While manning the desk, fielding emergency calls, a woman marched in, screaming that she was going to sue the mayor, the council etc. because her son's employer, a flooded business with a car sitting in their seating area, hadn't called him to tell him not to come to work. I just stared at her, mouth agape, until the full absurdity of her rant sunk into my sleep-deprived brain. I pointed out that the whole downtown area had 4 feet of river flowing through it, and that the business had no windows or doors, a car sitting in it, and it was full of water, so I was sure that his employer had thought her son was smart enough to know that he shouldn't go to work. Plus, I added, we had no control over a private business. She shut up for about a minute, then started ranting how she is going to sue everyone again, but this time it was because the gas stations in town charged too much for gas, again something we had absolutely no control over. We had to ban her from coming in or from calling our office, so somehow she got my unlisted phone number and proceeded to call me at 4 AM to scream that her neighbor's dog was barking, and what was I going to do about it? I yelled at her that I don't do dogs and unplugged my phone. The office called the cops next day and we never heard from her again.